Tell me what your heart wants.
Would you travel with me?
That is quite an argument. I tell you what, let's argue across the...
Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
Honey, I'm here for fun.
Then go and pursue your fast side pleasures.
You're kind of funny, peculiar.
I think you and I should go outside.
You can't! We have work to do.
Wow.
Hello, my lords, ladies, and gentle beings, and gentlemen. Welcome to Pull to Open. Welcome, one and all. And welcome to this podcast that is normally quite random, and this time is quite Regency. I am currently cosplaying as Chris Taylor.
And I am your co-host, Pete Pachal, and I'm not doing any more accents. It's just not gonna happen.
That was so Bridgerton. You're doing so great.
We are into the fun and the cosplay of this, inspired, of course, by the gorgeousness of the costumes in this one. Oh my God.
Indeed. This, of course, being the Doctor Who episode Rogue, in case you've randomly clicked on it blindly on a podcast somewhere at random. You're like, give me a random podcast, and you receive what is normally the most random podcast on the internet.
Yeah, that would be so apt. We'd be the first one to come up.
Right.
Think about it. But no, we're talking about Rogue. I just finished watching it like about 20 minutes ago. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Things. That
So
was an episode of Doctor Who.
That was an episode that happened. First of all, I should say that this is not just a hot take, my ladies and gentle beings. This is a hot take and a cold take, because I watched Rogue in common with a lot of the screeners that I get Doctor Who a week in advance, usually. I will say, no screener for Legend of Ruby Sunday. Just gonna...
Interesting. So you're getting that one in real time. Finally, we're bringing you back. Finally, we'll be in sync.
Just when I thought I was out.
Won't be jumped anymore.
I know. But yeah, so I've been thinking and writing about Rogue over the past week. So I have some colder takes. But Pete, let's start with you. I'm going to jump straight in. Your hot take. Wow. I mean, so much to process, right? Was this anything like what you were expecting?
I do want to talk about Rogue. I want to get right into it. I want to talk about the story. I want to talk about the surprise about a third of the way through or so. And I want to talk about, the things we haven't seen before.
Indeed.
But before we do any of that, pour one out for William Russell.
William Russell, first companion in our hearts.
So it's been a hot take. We're hot taking this Rogue episode, but this happens to be the week where, at the age of, I believe, 99, one of the original Doctor Who companions passed away. There's been no end to tributes. Honestly, my Twitter feed has been just nonstop William Russell. Which has been great to see. I mean, there's been a lot of photos I had never seen of him before, and learned more about his acting career.
Yes, Lancelot. Yes, smoking a pipe on a horse, looking fabulous.
But I mean, in terms of like what he's meant to Doctor Who, certainly, that's a lot of people have talked about it. He was the original action man back when obviously William Hartnell was 55 and an older 55, and they needed a guy to fulfill that role, and he nailed it in just such a real way. I thought, like, he just brought the reality to it. Was always sort of believably this guy from the 60s who was seeing fantastical things for the first time and took it very seriously. And as a result, I think we took it seriously. And I remember when the run, I was watching Doctor Who on Saturday nights, and these omnibus episodes, and at some point it got to sort of modern day, like I think the Colin Baker, Peter Davison, and the McCoy stuff hadn't started yet, so they rewound all the way back to William Hartnell, and that's how I saw all those episodes. And I would say a big reason of why I kept watching was because of him. Like he just was there every week, and he was just super relatable.
The man
so
who
many
first
good lines.
got to utter that line. What do you mean, Doctor Who? Who knew?
Totally.
that would be repeated so many times in the show since. But yeah, you'll never forget his line reading of it once you've seen that opening episode. And yeah, he was just this fundamentally decent guy, high school teacher, the equivalent thereof, but still just sort of, able to educate us, the audience, very, very capable, very Indiana Jones-ish. If Indiana Jones were a high school teacher and not a university professor, he'd be a lot like Ian, and he was a very quiet but solid chap.
So I wish I could tell you my favorite line of his in Doctor Who, but we haven't been to that episode yet. And I don't want to spoil you or spoil everyone. So when we get there, I'll talk about it. But I will say it's really cool that he's the first person to utter, the line Doctor Who in the first episode, but also one of his final lines has subsequently become a classic, which of course is London 1965. And I just love that his run on Doctor Who is bookended that way. Two super memorable scenes, two super memorable lines.
Technically bookended with, I'm sorry, did you say her?
You're right.
Yes, the power of the Doctor. I mean, that just, the fact that he's left her shortly after that. I mean, you're grateful that he was there to anchor that meeting of the Companions Anonymous. He got to be in it one more time. We should be in the contract. Once a Doctor Who actor, you get to come back on before your time is done. Looking at you, Carol Ann Ford.
Definitely. So, it's pretty great that we were able to do this because we've been doing the podcast a few weeks in advance now, the regular podcast. And with these hot takes, we can sort of chime in on what's happening now. So great stuff. He was the original handsome hero in Doctor Who. And now we get to talk about a couple of other handsome heroes.
Indeed, yes.
As we transition back into our Rogue hot take. And
not to mention the lovely Lady Sunday.
Lady Sunday.
So,
Rogue. Okay.
So Rogue.
Rogue is, it's funny that it harkens back to one of the things Shooty said in the first episode of the season, where it's like, I know this guy isn't a Time Lord, for that we know anyway, but he shouts out like everyone's got these pompous titles, and even McName's Ronnie in it. And it's kind of neat because it's like this guy has sort of a pompous title, and the Doctor's super into him right off the bat,
and discovers and really zeroes in on who he is by zeroing in on his D20s. And realizing that Rogue comes from Dungeons and Dragons, and that is what I'll say. Apart from the explosive queer romance at the center of Rogue, obviously that's very important. It is also a story about fandom, and it intersects with Doctor Who fandom in so many ways. First of all, cosplay. Like, this is one of the most cosplaying fandoms. And I am sure we're going to see at all Doctor Who conventions going forward, Chulda cosplay, where people run around in bird outfits and Regency garb, just wanting to cosplay other people. Oh, you're more interesting. I want to be you. I love that idea. Like, it's got its own built-in cosplay fun, right? So that's fantastic. The fact that they are all sort of like, practically everyone on that ball, bar a few extras, is revealed to actually be a Bridgerton fan. I kind of wanted them to go the whole hog with there. Like, everyone reveals themselves to be like entertainment historians from the 42nd century, or just researching ancient Netflix specials. So there's no one here from 1813. But I love that idea. And then just the fact that the Doctor and Rogue, like that is ready-made /fiction. They are sharpening their pencils over on Wattpad right now, because any writer can now make Rogue come back from the parallel universe, right? So
I wonder how that would go if he's a female incarnation again in the future. You know what I mean? Like, that would be kind of an interesting.
Or if River Song is on the scene. So first of all, I kind of want to go straight here to possibly the most provocative question to come out of this episode. Is the Doctor now a bigamist.
Interesting.
Does that signify marriage? Was he actually married to
The
River?
ring,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Because he does put on the ring at the end.
He does.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, it's to steal the line from Terminator, in the short time they were together, they loved a lifetime's worth, right? It almost seems like what they were doing. And they really sold it, I have to say. It's not bad. I got to say, the Doctor, the Doctor's can be a flirt. And this is certainly not the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And you do get the sense that it's kind of playful, jokey at first.
Yeah. At first you're like, he's a bit of a Captain Jack figure, but no, this
flirting
is
is, right? That's exactly what it is. Until it's all fun and games until it gets serious.
Until someone plays Kylie Minogue, and then all bets are off.
Well, and also until like there's serious emotional bondage going on, right? And for you, what was that moment? Like, I do feel like for me, it was probably when he realizes Ruby's dead, or believes she is. And he kind of, because he gets to see the Doctor there kind of at his worst. He goes a little human nature, family of blood there for a second.
He does.
About how they're
going to suffer
certain years, and that's a good long suffering. And yeah, like it's kind of like he's getting the full Time Lord.
It is
Time Lord to Victorious.
I think for me, it was the scene that goes from comedy to drama, I guess from comedy to romance. So very interesting. Or rom-com to something else. But what happens? When the Doctor's trapped on Rogue's ship, and he's playful with the Sonic, he's dancing to Kylie. By the way, shout out to we could talk about what this means in the Doctor Who universe, that someone who looks like Astrid Perth from Voyage of the Damned sang that song that the Doctor is now gyrating to. Anyway, but to go from that, and I love the number of times Shooty is like, put the song back on.
But then he gives him the Sonic, which I thought kind of interesting.
Yeah,
like, which is again,
he trusts him with the Sonic.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like it's one of those things that will believably get him to fall in love with him. And it's such a simple gesture. It's like, okay, I'm giving it to you because I'm demonstrating trust.
Yes.
And with an expectation, there's going to be trust back. And it doesn't come right away, but it does come.
Yes.
And I shouldn't say come so much.
or emotional bondage. Yes. There's so many rabbit holes we can fall down
really.
in this episode. But but no, so it was the fact that it switched suddenly like a date will from the high comedy of like, I've found Kylie Minogue on your iPhone, and I'm gonna tease you mercilessly about it too. All of a sudden, holy shit, we're sharing our deep dark pasts. And hey, look, you're gonna see 17 or 18 of my faces. Like that's quite a first date.
You've had this for a while. You were able to count.
Yes. Okay, so do you want the full list?
Let's do this.
It is. Let me see here. Let me just fire up the article that I wrote about this. So, first of all, you see Shooty, in the hologram. Then he throws the psychic paper, forces the scan, the full scan, I guess, because Rogue was only seeing him on a surface level, possibly romantically as well, right?
I sort of got the sense you're the shapeshifter. He just understands for some reason he has other faces,
right?
Even though you don't really see them yet,
right? So. Then you get Tenant 14. Then you get Jodie. Then you get Hartnell. Then you get ... But who?
Right.
And a lot of people are saying Richard E. Grant. We'll get to that. But let's continue. I think the fact that they sandwiched the guy between Hartnell and Tom Baker. The next one is like, oh, you're made to pay attention to him. Like beyond just this is a sight gag that'll get. Anyway, we'll get to that. Anyway, Tom Baker, John Hurt, Capaldi, Chris Eccleston, Matt Smith, Joe Martin, whose face a little distorted, might be hard to see her.
I got that.
Tennant again.
Yeah.
Tenant 10. Gotta show up twice.
He's such a hog.
Oh, I know. Pertwee, Colin Baker,
Right.
Peter Davison, Paul McGann, Troughton, and McCoy. Oh, McCoy, always last.
Yeah.
He don't get no respect.
They have not seen Delta and the Bannerman.
Clearly.
Go listen to our podcast on that. So, like, who is this guy?
Yes.
Who is this other Dark Carnation, right? Like,
Yes.
I mean, obviously, with the Timeless Child, with what they tried to do in the Whitaker era, and is apparently, like, very, very much something RTD wants to keep going, clearly. Like, he keeps referencing it. So it's like, okay, there's no paving over that. There's no, making a jigsaw of it. But given that, it could be really anybody. There are any number of incarnations of the Doctor we have not yet seen, and it's notable. Like there were no Morbius Doctors in that group.
I expected a hirsute Philip Hinchcliffe, and I was sadly disappointed there. But no, it was. Some people are saying Richard E. Grant and that it's just a joke. I think it might be the solution to the whole season hiding in plain sight. That might just be because I've gone down like a, conspiracy theory rabbit hole that the one who waits, is the Valeyard. There are a lot of good reasons to believe that. I think obviously this isn't Michael Jason, although it does have a similar hairline.
Speaking of pouring one out, by the way, Michael Jason.
I know, died in February this year. And maybe this is just wishful thinking that I think it's the Valeyard, because I hope that they got him back for a regeneration.
That would have been huge. Man.
Right?
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, to think that you'd almost think they would have mentioned that in his obituary or something. I guess they can't. I don't know. That'd be a tough one. If they didn't, I totally understand.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also like, is it really the Valeyard though? Is that interesting? Are we really doing this?
I mean, who would be better? We've done the Master a lot in New Who. Great, we're done with the Master. How about an anti-Doctor? How about tying the Valeyard into Timeless Child?
Here's the thing about the Valeyard. I think it is worth doing, as much as it was kind of paved over and not really revisited much, except in I think a couple of novels, because it's exactly what you said. That idea is interesting. Not a master, but an anti-Doctor, a dark side, which we have seen shades of in other ways, certainly even in this episode. But it's the idea of the Valeyard has never really gone away in fandom, and not just in kind of a random, let's pick something esoteric or remote in the show's history and highlight it. It's just kind of it sticks in you, some future incarnation of the Doctor really goes totally bad.
It's certainly stuck in me. Go back to the episode on rage quitting. One thing I didn't really mention about quitting after, Trial of Time Lord and going into Sylvester McCoy is I had such high hopes for, I wanted more Valeyard. So again, this may be I'm just glomming onto this theory because I really, really want to see this. But how great would that be if it's Grant, if it's some other actor, that if RTD just sort of put the big bad in plain sight, right? While we're all paying attention to the Doctor and Rogue's romance, he might have just thrown in there a little, hot plot bomb from the season ending.
Yeah, I mean, he should. I mean, that's good. It's sprinkling around. I do think it was clearly intentional, right? This is somebody, this is something. And I don't think it was intentional in this, or just a random thing that someone else will do something with that someday.
Yeah.
I think he's got something going on here and I think the evidence is what he didn't do in Wild Blue Yonder, which was, hey, I could put William Hartnell in here and that'll be interesting. But I think the reason he didn't do that, he just didn't know what he was going to do with that.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you're going to do with it, I mean, it could be fun, but it's also I'd rather you didn't.
Yes.
Yeah. So I hope his instincts or his storytelling skills here are that this is a Chekhov's gun, and we're going to figure out what this is.
A Chekhov's season
ender.
Yes, Chekhov's Doctor. I love it. And of course, we got the Susan Twist coming up. What did you think of Susan Twist being the Duchess's mother? I
mean, it's again, I don't have much to think of it other than okay, we're going to get some answers some point. I mean, the trailer for what is it, The Legend of Ruby Sunday, or
yes, Legend. Legend.
Looks like they're going to finally start to reveal what that's going on. But it's like, yeah, it's like Bad Wolf.
Yes.
It is what it is.
Hey,
Okay.
you know who else would be interested in seeing the Valley Art again? Mel.
Oh, well, all of that now, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Of course. Okay, it's the Valley Yard. Yeah, done.
Canon. Fact. Take that
You
to
gotta
the
wonder,
bank.
like, did the doctor notice that face? You know what I mean?
He
Like, is that
didn't.
just-
He didn't. He's not looking.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
so wild.
Well, but even if he was, would he just go like, "Oh yeah, that's that other doctor I've kept secret," or something? Like,
Yes, cue Matt Smith pulling Clara out of his timeline. Like, there's, oh, I forgot to tell you, there's yet another face I never mentioned.
for that 200 years I was off, when between closing time and
yeah,
and,
wedding
whatever else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, from the wedding of River
regenerated.
Song to the wedding of Rogue and the Doctor.
Yeah, let's get back to that. All right, let's get back to the episode. Talking about this. Okay, we've talked about the gayest episodes of Doctor Who before.
We have.
Remember
Yay,
when
Seeds of Doom. Seeds of Death, sorry.
Seeds of Death, and
Seeds of
then
Death.
even when Nathan Bottomley guest starred way back when we did Claws of Access.
Claws of Access.
He definitely awakened me to some overtones or undertones.
You'll never see the Axon ship the same way again.
Never. But this, I think, hands down, wins the gold medal. I mean,
Yes.
obviously.
And how perfect for Pride Month. I mean,
Right.
You've got to think.
There you go.
So RTD, I think, set this up masterfully. First of all, one thing I couldn't get out of my head was not just Kylie Minogue, but also when RTD had a caption of when they first revealed Jonathan Groff. I think it was on Instagram, and he said something like, Shujigawa was the Doctor, and Jonathan Groff is ... No. ... But how? Question mark. And I was like, Jonathan Groff is the Master, confirmed, or Jonathan Groff is Captain Jack, confirmed. Like, that's where my fanish head went to, and I just love the idea that what he was thinking was the Doctor's husband.
Right.
I think that's basically what we can take from this episode, that the Doctor now has a husband and a wife, and woe betide us if they should ever meet. Oh, mate, the Mrs. and the new Mister, every man's worst nightmare.
If you think about it, I almost feel like the Doctor is one of the. Well, River Song is the exception, I guess, maybe because he falls in love so quickly.
Oh God, yes.
You think about Rose. I guess that might have taken a little bit, but it was fairly fast. Like he seems to decide these things right away. But the episode I sort of thought of as the corollary, I guess from the hetero perspective, is The Girl in the Fireplace.
Yes.
Where they similarly love a lifetime's worth in the scope of a Doctor Who episode.
They do,
and in the case of Renette, it literally is a lifetime's worth. So,
and the Doctor doesn't even need to dance in it.
Yeah, and so he's like clearly taken with him, and like as soon as he's on board the TARDIS, he's talking about like, well, we're going to travel together, and this is going to be great.
I'm going to argue across the stars, just like Pull to Open.
And you kind of see like what the fun, I guess, queer family with her and
Millie Gibson.
Ruby?
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, can we just pause to acknowledge the brilliance once again of Millie Gibson?
Of course.
Start
this season.
I have been thinking since I've watched this like 3 times now, and I've been thinking of this move that she does twice in it.
Yeah,
the finger pointing.
Yeah, right. For those just listening, pointing
and doing that sort of guppy fish mouth. Yeah, and she just that's so wonderful. It's stuck in my head. Just a great little mannerism from Ruby. But again, really strong episode from her with the battle mode, with the overhearing, with the Bridgerton references.
I also like that she was very natural, and because of that naturalness, we get that delightful bit of conversation where she says, "Yeah, okay," and I forget the name of the woman she's talking to, who turns out to be one of the bad guys. That she's getting this 21st century dialect. essentially, and
Yes.
but is picking up on it.
Yes.
Yeah,
What is
okay.
cushy?
Yeah.
Okay. What is this TV? By the way, if we're to introduce a nitpick,
Mhm.
how are episodes of Bridgerton that is on Netflix being beamed into space if we don't
I
do like
know.
TV signals anymore? Like
Well, you gotta think.
I'm a big fan of Contact. I love that sort of we picked up your TV signal trope in science fiction. But yeah, how?
Well, also it would be digital, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be an analog signal that would be easily deciphered. You need to understand what the codec is to decode
Yes.
it. So
Not the codex, but the codec.
right, exactly.
Yes.
But I got sufficiently advanced technology. But yeah, it's true. Maybe it's not Bridgerton. Maybe it's what was that other one? Downton Abbey. Well, that was
Downton,
about
yeah. So,
a century later. So
or even before it, I'm really going to age myself here. Going back to the William Russell era, Upstairs, Downstairs was kind of
ooh,
the
there you go.
original one of
That
this.
must have been it.
Yeah,
It's got
yeah.
some of those PBS transmissions.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, somehow they're into Bridgerton. I kind of love how meta this episode gets, not just in a sort of references to fandom. And I want to, I want to cosplay you, and like, the good and the bad side of that, right? I feel like
Yeah.
it's a bit kind of sort of like just settle into, yes, have a costume change, but like maybe just settle into your personality. But also like a meta commentary on the show. It's on TV, on the effect of TV.
Right. Yeah, I think they do a little of that. I think it's fairly superficial. I think that when they realize these folks are like cosplayers and they're just having fun, and I don't like how it kind of they're trying to meld that with an evil plot, which is to say they're like, oh, they're cosplayers and they're just having fun, but they still want to destroy the world for some reason. Like that for some reason they feel obligated to up those stakes. Like I think the stakes are dire enough that they just don't care about people they're killing, whether it's 12 people or 12 billion people. You know what I mean?
But
Like,
what I love about them, though, what I love about the children is the fact that they love a plot twist, and that's how the
Yeah.
Doctor gets out of this, by manufacturing a plot twist. And then, whoa, wait, what this plot? Wait, are we playing or are we not playing? Right, that
Right.
wonderful moment
creating
of
the
like,
drama.
creating drama, and it works, and they
Yeah.
follow him, and that's a wonderful meta commentary on Doctor Who. It's like, all the way through this, RTG is signaling like, I'm gonna. There's a twist in the end here, right?
Yeah.
Twist in the end
If you
coming.
remember all the way back to Androids of Tara, which was years ago at this point when we did that, and I thought about that society, and like I thought that this is sort of making my read of that episode, that it was a planet that's all about theatricality,
Yes.
into a reality, I think. And I think it's a delightful idea, frankly. And I'm glad they
Yes.
sort of did it on such a notable episode.
I like to think that the TV signals they were picking up on was William Russell's Lancelot.
Ah,
William
there you
Russell,
go.
everyone.
Let's do that.
Mm.
So, how did you like the scene where the Doctor was convinced that Ruby was dead?
I liked it in the sense of like we kind of do. It is kind of now a new Who tradition that the Doctor vows vengeance for the companion he thinks is dead, right? Or sometimes the companion that actually is dead. You'll find it's a very small universe when I'm angry with you. Like he's threatening. He's rarely issuing a threat as specific as he basically wants to torture children for their entire lifetime, which is getting a bit into human nature territory, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And I do think it's well-tread territory, right? Like ever since Rose, if you think about it, where the Doctor takes someone, promises they're going to be okay, even though he knows he can't really make that promise, and sort of goes through iterations of guilt and sometimes self-imposed isolation, right? In the case of Tennant,
Yeah.
to sort of make up for it or try to adapt to it.
Yeah.
And in this case, I don't know if the vote's entirely in yet, but it'll be interesting to see if this changes him a bit or if they sort of just carry on.
What did you think? I mean, it's a bold choice to insert that flashback of the Doctor talking to Carla Sunday.
Yeah.
And saying, "I'll keep you safe." It does seem a bit Deus Ex Machina. It is a bit out of the blue to just kind of throw that in there.
You know what I feel like that was? I felt like that was Disney notes. I felt like Disney said, you've got to like make it explicit. And then Russell and the crew, I don't know who directed this episode, but they made the decision like, well, there's no room for dialogue here. He's so distraught. Like it's got to be done in flashback. So they just decided to do that. And I did feel like it was a little bit changing the pace of the scene, honestly.
Yeah, it's our only non-1813 moment, right?
Yeah, and I will sort of also just say there does seem to be a contractual obligation on Ncuti Gatwa to cry in every episode.
Yes, that's right. Ncuti Gatwa brought to you by the Cry Marketing Board.
So
about whom Pete has a few words to say.
Yeah, so I've obviously talked about this before, but in our last hot take, we talked a little bit about Ncuti crying and that scene in Dot and Bubble, which, by the way, thank you everyone who checked out our podcast for Dot and Bubble. It's actually our most commented on podcast ever, and on pace to do more reviews than any of our podcasts. So amazing. Thank you very much for that. But anyway, in that hot take,
yes.
Yeah, in that hot take we were talking about crying, and I think, criticizing that again, like Ncuti's crying in every episode, and it's starting to feel like a bit of a trick in some ways, even though as good as his performance was in there. But what happened was in that episode, the podcast, we got into sort of a more general discussion about men crying. And I will just say some of my comments were inarticulate in that podcast, and I regret them. So one thing I would just want to make clear, I do think it is a good thing for men to cry sometimes. I do think it's a good idea for everyone to cry sometimes. I think
Absolutely.
That's 100% necessary. And honestly, it might even be appropriate to do it in public. So if anyone interpreted my saying what I said as being against that, I'm not. I think that's very positive. But also there can be too much of a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And so all I was trying to say was that the dramatic ending to Dot and Bubble, I thought, would have been more impactful if Ncuti wasn't necessarily crying in all the episodes previous. Because then you don't have that sort of eye roll effect, which you definitely do not want to have in that episode. And I think his performance was good enough that you got it.
Here's the thing I want to say about the crying, because I've been thinking more about this subject since we talked about it last week, and I think that it's like it's a choice. It's an interesting choice. It's a legitimate thing to debate whether you should have it in every episode. But clearly, if you do have it in every episode, it is a choice that you're making. I think that it wouldn't work dramatically if Ncuti was like more of a baller, for want of a better word, like if it was more demonstrative crying. But what I actually like about his crying is it just sort of comes out, right? It just happens to be there. There's no ostentatiousness to it. It's just part of the leaking. And I'm almost at the stage of like headcanoning this as like, this is the first like post-therapy doctor, if you will, right? The 14th doctor took all the doctor's trauma and went off and retired. And Ncuti has always been like bold and new and young, but still, he has to still incorporate all the grief of Gallifrey and all of the whatever he talked about of Legopolis, and like everything he experienced. And I kind of like the idea that it just sort of like at moments of high tension, like all of that hundreds and hundreds of years of grief of everything that he's been through, every death that he's seen, just kind of links out, just kind of casually, like almost like not drawing attention to it, just like this is just kind of what you would do as a being who's that old, right? A bit like me in the Woman Who Lived, right? That whole sense of like,
I thought you meant you.
Me, capital M.
What a view of a baller. I know you're a baller, though.
Hey,
hey.
Cheers.
No, I do like that interpretation. I do like, and I also do like that Ncuti Gatwa is like the most emotive doctor we've seen. So these are very interesting choices. I think if they peel back a layer like the one you're talking about to all this crying, I think it'll see it in a new light, and I'd probably like it better. But in the meantime, it does become this sort of the opposite of Tennant's "I'm fine,"
Yeah.
like where that was sort of his default, and not just Tennant. I think even Smith and others were sort of in that
my
mode.
goodness.
It's
The
a
Doctor's
different
had
thing.
a bit of a stiff upper lip, shall we say.
Exactly. And this is different and it's interesting. And really that's this episode in a nutshell to describe it. This is different and interesting.
Yes.
And it's like when you have a 60-year-old television show, right? Like again, I know there's to talk. I don't want to get too much into the politics of the choices here, and certainly, I think it's fine to talk about politics as much as the show sort of goes into it. But I don't want to go down to it as I found out last week. It's probably not. We don't want, like, in other words, like when and by the way, when we do politics, when it's okay to talk about it. I just want to feel like we're not in a bubble of our own, right? Which is why
that's right.
I feel. Other views
yes.
should at least be acknowledged.
Here. Yes, we want to be accepting of all points of view.
Yeah, but I mean, again, 60-year-old TV show. We've seen a lot of things. We have not seen this. Let's go for it. Let's see what it's like. It's interesting, and they really gave it the raw. I mean, Jonathan Groff. I mean, got to give him like hats off to that guy.
Absolutely,
he really sold this thing completely.
It's very interesting, isn't it? That he's so he's not a Doctor Who fan himself. He said this, that he kind of, and actually the first episode that he watched was An Unearthly Child. He got William Russell as his sort of first lead, right? What a wonderful connection. But yeah, he really knocks it out of the park as Rogue. Rogue is such a wonderfully lovable bad guy who's like his bad guys his bounty hunterness is just paper thin. He's got that haunted look throughout, and we never find out who he's lost. And headcanon, I like to think maybe the partner was Captain Jack.
Ooh, interesting. I guess I kind of wonder, like, is he? I mean, I guess once you get into these sort of cosmic beings, is it like Jack was always described more as omnisexual than sexual than gay, right?
Yeah. You could spend a few centuries traveling around with Rogue. We last saw him with Alonso. Well, apart from seeing him in prison with the Doctor.
I mean, when you're immortal, you got millions of years to break hearts all over the universe.
But yes, it is. It is. It is the. Well, it's interesting, right? That you're like, oh, it's the first queer kiss in Doctor Who. Actually, no, it's not, because Captain Jack gave him plenty of smackers on the lips. And I wish the first proper queer kiss in Doctor Who had been Yaz, #justice for Yaz, and the Doctor. Like, they never got this moment.
No, but I mean, you think about all the things that paved the way here, right? Like, he couldn't have just done this in 2005 or 2006 or even 2010. Honestly, like there were steps, there was a sequence, and you sort of. The world had to sort of get to a certain place too, if you think about it.
The Doctor had to get consent from Shakespeare.
Yeah, but if you think about like Missy and then Whittaker, well, even the mentions of things like the Corsair, but predating that, and just sort of the playing with the idea of, gender swapping, gender bending, whatever you want to call it,
right?
And then just
your orientation changing as well, which is really confirmed in the Wild Blue Yonder, right? That's the final step that led us here. When the Doctor, the 14th Doctor, has that realization about Isaac Newton, that he fancied him.
Right.
Like, oh, am I like that now? Yeah. And Donna's like, it was never far from the surface. Which I think
certainly not far from the surface anymore.
Right?
I mean, well, this is the thing. I mean, it's... Again, there's an interesting quote from Jonathan Groff in one of the interviews where he talks about Unearthly Child and sort of the TARDIS being bigger inside than outside in this world that is much deeper on the inside, and how that's sort of inherently a queer idea. Now, whether you buy into that or not, I think it's a lovely thing to buy into if you want to. And I think what this episode is again doing the thing like, well, why don't we just take that subtext that people have been reading into this forever and make a text? And let's see what happens.
And I have to wonder, another thing that RTD has hinted at in his Doctor Who magazine column is that there were certain conditions that he laid down in returning, in agreeing to return for the RTD2 era. And I got to wonder if this wasn't one of them. He's like, I want to be, I want to be remembered as the showrunner who like had the first queer romance for the Doctor in Doctor Who. Like that is a condition, because you've got to wonder if Disney, who when in the throes of production of this would have been fighting with Ron DeSantis over the quote unquote
Right.
don't say gay bill, right? So you got to wonder if like there were Disney notes of like, I don't know, but RTD putting his foot down like, no. This is happening. We've been building up to this since 2005. Like, this is a condition of my return. I would not be surprised to find out that. And it's interesting, he did not write this himself,
Right.
by the
Okay.
way. And one wonders if it was a little too close to the bone, given the fact that his own partner passed away in
Right.
the 2010s, very sadly. And yeah, you got to feel like that's when Rogue started talking about his lost partner, and the Doctor, they're talking obliquely about it. You've got to carry on because they can't. I'm like, oh God, wow! You've got to picture RTD in like floods of tears right in the editing booth watching that. Like it's got to be really close to his heart. This episode in a lot of ways, perhaps more than we know.
Absolutely. And I can definitely see this episode getting really into a lot of the hearts of fans of the show.
Absolutely, and creating new fans as well.
Yeah, interesting new. I liked the tears this time more than not more than last time. I mean, they're very different tears too, but I did like it that it was the more of sort of an anguish crying, and because the darkness that happens right after, and because it had to do with Ruby, like the Doctor companion relationship really is sacred. It worked for me. I'll just say that.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, it kind of, it's a little bit on the cheesy Bridgerton romance side, but it's done to perfection, and it's done very sort of knowingly with a wink, and that classic moment of, no, I'm going to sacrifice myself. And you can't stop me, Doctor. Like we've seen that. Like that's a shout out to many classic Who episodes in itself. Not that there's always a kiss that precedes it, but the no, taking this thing, running, shoving Ruby off. Come find me. Press the button.
Yeah, find me. Oh, yeah. It wasn't even come find me. It was find me.
Find me.
Boom.
Yeah,
command you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What did you think? This is where I wanted to talk about where he at the end sort of tries to do the brave, what he thinks is brave. Like, oh, I'm just carry on. That's what I do. I'm standing up and let's go see some moons or whatever.
Yeah, I really and then Ruby stopping him and saying, "No, you're stopping. You're having a hug, mate. Just stop right there." I like that because it shows that even if he is, quietly crying at moments of stress and relieving tension that way, he's still got that very doctorish problem that we never lose, even if we figure out all of our trauma. Like we never necessarily lose the problem of like, oh, we just want to move past the painful thing. Let's avoid the painful thing. Let's go on. Let's do the next thing. And in the Boom podcast we talked about this, right? The ADHD doctor. The doctor,
right.
that's so relevant, and this is exactly that. It's like, right, yep, onward, upward, forward. And I like that Ncuti plays it like he believes it in that scene. It could be a choice to be like, that he doesn't really believe it, but he kind of does. Like that's top of his mind there, and it's Ruby who has to bring him back to himself, fulfilling the traditional purpose of the companion.
Exactly, it was, but a slightly different way of playing it. Like why the Doctor needs companions. Usually, it's portrayed as trying to bring him back from the brink of some darkness, and here it's not quite darkness, but it is still saving him from himself.
Yes,
which I really like.
Yeah.
One thing about that scene, I will say, which is I think I read into this choice because he's talking about he's sending the ship up into orbit essentially to wait for Rogue and presumably cloaked. I guess it's still up there. But
hopefully beyond the satellites.
They never show it. Like they never show and I think in 2006, 2007, they would have had sort of a cheesy warp effect in the sky to sort of show it, which I think is probably a good choice not to. unless they
Yeah.
were really going to spend money and it's not worth spending money on. And it's like, no, let's just not show anything. He's going to describe what it is, and we're going to save all the money for the finale.
Right. And just you get your one shot of his ship, and it's all for the reveal of, and now that's a ship, which I thought. Did you enjoy that scene, the shed?
I gotta because I was thinking a lot about Rose, and I was thinking about a lot about previous romances. I got echoes of the Doctor dances and the Empty Child, where there's a joke about scanning for alien tech and Rose being impressed with Jack because he's got a real ship and real stuff. He's like a professional space guy.
Yeah.
Like I got it, but again, that was what almost 20 years ago now. Like it's time you can echo, you can rhyme with your own history, Doctor Who. That's okay.
You can rhyme with your own new history. That's how old the show is. Yes.
All right. Have we exhausted all the rogueness?
I think
what else
so.
are we going to talk about? The earrings, maybe? And
yeah, it was that would be my other little nitpick. It's like when Ruby's pretending to not be Ruby, like you hear the bird sounds when she moves her head. So, like, was that the psychic?
It had to be, and I do feel like, it is one of these things that, as long as it lasts an episode, I think is fine, because it's basically she has magic earrings. Like, and every now and then, Doctor Who does this stuff. There were the gloves way back in, not way back, but like in the Church on Ruby Road, which I actually wouldn't mind seeing again, because those sort of seem to make a bit more sort of sci-fi sense. But they were just too magical. Like, oh, not only can you dance like you've been programmed by the Matrix, it can also make you fight and do these sounds and honestly do kind of whatever. Like, are they going to shine your shoes too? Like, what,
it's a bit overpowered, but I love that they just go straight there. Like, if you're going to introduce something ridiculously overpowered at the end of the episode, mention the battle mode right at the beginning. I kind of like that. I also love something that is, again, very, very Doctor Who-ish. Even in this thing that is doing something phenomenally new, there are moments that are so Who-ish, and I love the whole thing of, like, just try not to, like, invent tarmac. I forget what the other thing he says is. 1902 kind of got away from me. That's so you can imagine any Doctor saying that line, right? Yeah, I love it.
Good stuff. Well, last thing I'll just say is that this season is proving to be all killer, no filler. One advantage of a short season is that you really got to step up to the plate and swing for the fences in every episode, and they certainly are. So kudos to Davies for doing that. It's
like they put them in order, right? Of each one is better than the last. It's like a staircase. Almost a little bit. They may be up and down depending on individual tastes, whatever, but it definitely feels like it's building, and it's certainly building an audience. I don't know about you, but I'm hearing about, or like I'm reading about 73 Yards a lot. People are mentioning that, like, my local comic book store has an email list, and they're like, my God, that 73 feet was fantastic. 73 yards. But
meters, maybe.
But it's cutting through. And Dot and Bubble, like, it cut through, and you really get the sense that Doctor Who is in the conversation again. And Rogue is absolutely building on that. This is a must-watch episode for fans of any fandom, right?
And certainly this one and the last episode, Dot and Bubble, I think are just going to be huge, like, conversation starters, and like people are just going to be really excited to talk about them. Whatever you might think.
I think
choices.
I think RTD really understood the assignment here. He understands how you pull in an audience and how you hook them with really clever and really bold stories. Really brave choices.
He's a showman. This is the thing. Say what you will about it. He's starting the conversation. He is bringing in the audiences. He is making it relevant.
He's bringing sexy back.
That's Rogue, everybody. All right. I don't know what our next podcast is. We'll have another hot take next week, but we're probably going to hear something on, I don't freaking know. Dragonfire. That's
Yeah. Oh God, have we gone into the future of our random adventure? Now, I believe the next thing people are going to listen to is Armageddon Factor. Yes,
We'll talk about it, Chris.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll send you something from our cloaked ship. In the meantime,
I'm pretty certain the next thing on our feed will be our hot take on the Legend of Ruby Sunday. So watch for that, everybody. Oh, also, don't forget to follow us on the socials. Pull to Open, Pull to Open 63 on all the social networks. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/Pull to Open. And hey, you can become a true companion of the podcast by subscribing there, supporting us on Spotify, or supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/Pull to Open. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter at pulltoopen.net, where you can get full notes on all of our random episodes if we remember to send them. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you forget all of that, if you forget how to follow us on your favorite social network, just look at the psychic paper below the words "your heart," where it just says Google it.
Man, and I am hot. I'm getting out of here. All right, folks. It's been real.
All right. Bye, guys.
It's been regal.
It's been regal. Yes, we'll fix it in post.